Hi there. Welcome to Is the Human Race About to Mature? I'm known as Wolfster, and welcome to episode 14, the first particle to the first star. So how did the first particle, which I have in my series, episode 13 was about how the first particle developed. Now I'm going to explain how the first particle actually became the first star. So, as I said in episode 13, each particle is comprised of literally billions of tri-orbs, and these tri-orbs, or even the orbs that make up the tri-orbs, exist in 24 different sizes, literally physically sizes, although they, at this stage, they have no matter to them. They are pure energy. But the tri-orbs attract each other. If you haven't seen episode 13, please maybe go back to it and start from episode 13, because episode 13, 14 and the next episode 15 all tie together. In fact, all 18 episodes all fit to one. And you can see in this board I've got at the back here, I started here in episode 1 and I've moved up to here, but now I've started to move here. But the whole episode, 18 episodes, are like a circle, and they all connect to each other. They are all like a jigsaw puzzle with 18 different pieces, all coming together, and they produce a single picture of everything. Whoa. So, I've discussed how tri-orbs grow, and they put out, each tri-orb has its own vibration, so 24 different vibrations. This is something I've deleted actually, I didn't think to mention. That gives us the 24 particles, the natural occurring 24 particles in particle physics. So, and I got that from 24 runes, which is what I work with, or have worked with, knowing them as 24 vibrations. So that makes up the 24 elementary particles in particle physics. So, how does this all come together? So we've got a particle, and it continues to attract more tri-orbs. The bigger it gets, the stronger its vibration gets. And because of the pressure of all the other orbs around it, it gets compressed. And this is what forms matter. Energy being compressed, which causes it to slow down, and it causes it to bind. So we have the first particle, or the first 24 particles, which could well be what scientists call dark matter, or dark energy, only because they don't understand what it is. So we've got this first particle. So now, instead of an orb, we've got the first particle. And this particle is now dense. This is the beginning of matter as we know it. Now, because it's vibrating, other tri-orbs continue to be attracted to it. However, there's something else that I've spoken about in other episodes, something that actually governs everything. and actually causes life itself. I've used this before and probably will use it a few times again. I won't write on it. So energy vibrating, seeks purpose. And when energy seeking purpose is what life actually is. Life is energy seeking purpose, and that creates, it comes together, seeking purpose. So all these triorbs coming together, creating a particle, that's their purpose, and that's the purpose that they find. However, and of course, before I take this away, this energy-seeking purpose brings forth life that then goes into information form, which is encapsulated in consciousness. So information is encapsulated in consciousness as energy finds more purpose, expanding life. And as that continues to go around, once energy has found purpose, life increases, information becomes more, that's encapsulated in consciousness. That comes around, but instead of just going back to where it was, I don't want to take that off, but when it returns, this cycle doesn't return back to the same place. It goes to a higher level, and then it comes around again, goes to a higher level. Now this is not, and it just continues. The more purpose it finds, the more advanced it becomes. If it loses purpose, then instead of expanding, it starts to either stall or starts to break down. And this is where we get entropy. If it doesn't find purpose, it starts to break down. Now, going back to my original particles, if that principle that I've just explained there of energy seeking purpose, creating information encapsulated in consciousness, and then feeding back in a loop, ever expanding, ever getting more complicated, learning, that's the beginning of intelligence. If that did not occur, this particle would just keep growing and growing and growing and growing. And what we would end up with, the whole universe just full of 24 enormous particles. Obviously, there is no purpose there. And the information in the consciousness realizes this. And so when it gets to a certain size, it realizes that this is the outer limit of its purpose. And that is what limits particles to be particles. However, triorbs are still attracted to it. Now, what that does is form, because they can't enter and enlarge it, they cluster around it. But they're restricted in density. So there is another field then, you can call it an energy field, that develops around each particle, made up of triorbs vibrating at the same frequency as the particle. So there's an energy field around it. And this energy field is actually the foundation in the universe of what we call spirit. So that energy field around it, in more advanced in us, we call it our aura. It is who we are. But in a particle, each particle has its own spirit. It is alive, according to what I've talked about, not just my ideas, but in panpsychism, and now many other scientists are now actually looking at this quite seriously, that everything is a life form. It's alive. Not in the sense of what we can look at in a test tube that can wiggle around, or not in that sense of life, not yet anyway. And that's to come in future episodes. But at this stage, it's not life as we know it, or as our tiny little brains and where we're at in our evolution can understand it. But it is the foundation of life. So we have the physical particle there with a spirit, and this spirit then becomes what is seeking purpose. It's continually seeking purpose for itself. And until it finds purpose, that also creates an outer limit. So it doesn't get any bigger than what it is once it's achieved purpose. We have these particles in the cosmos developing with an energy field around them, constantly seeking purpose. Now, what happens is they reach a stage where they can't get bigger anymore. They actually stall. Some may even deteriorate and collapse and go back to the original orbs that are surrounding them. But life always finds a way, doesn't it? That was in a movie somewhere, I forget which one it was. Life, it was in Jurassic Park, that's right. Life always finds a way, doesn't it? And the purpose that individual particles find, they can no longer grow, they can no longer do anything with themselves, but particles of different sizes eventually merged. So protons and neutrons came together. You have the neutron particle and a proton particle, which is they're different sizes, but a proton particle, they came together. Now what happened then was, as I've said, they each have an energy field around them. But when they come together, and because they found purpose together, they form, their energy field combines. But at this stage, at this level, it doubles up. The energy field doubles up. So there's two energy fields now envelop around the proton and the neutron that have found purpose together. What this is then is the foundation of what they say in nuclear physics, atomic physics, as the valence shelves. And these valence shelves then allow a third particle in keeping with triorbs, what I'm saying, everything is in threes. This is why we got I forgot what they're called now. Golden ratio. That's why we got the golden ratio. Everything is in threes. So in these two energy fields, seeking purpose, create what we call the valence shelves, and electrons, smaller. Some are particles, some are positive, some are negative. But electrons then form the third, and there is the foundation of the atom, the first atoms. Yeah. And once the first atoms were formed, where does that go? It gets fed into the what I've said here. It gets fed into energy seeking purpose, which brings life. All that information now that these two particles and the electrons and the valence shelves, the creation of atoms, that gets fed into information, which goes into collective consciousness, which gets fed into the universe, which just expands it. So this is another leap in the evolution of the universe, going from particle to atom. That process continues because, of course, once an atom is formed, then that is seeking purpose. And so at this stage, it's got so much information in there that's conscious and that's alive. There's so much there that it can now start to actually explore different purposes, different things. And what happens is different numbers of protons get explored, different numbers of electrons, different numbers of valence shelves come about. And so we get different atoms are created. And it continues on from there, because once all these atoms are created, then they are seeking purpose. So they bind with other atoms of different types and form molecules. And molecules form elements, and elements form everything that we know that exists. And even, it's a bit more complicated, but even thoughts and the information that is fed is all created this way. Here we have the beginning of our universe as more as we know it. But I'm right back in very, very early times. Very early. Now, time, I'm actually talking about a time, I shouldn't really say that, when a period where time literally didn't exist. That's how far back I'm going. Time is actually caused by particles or atoms traveling through the ether, or what I like to call the Sanskrit word akashia. That causes currents in the ether as matter moves through, and the more dense matter becomes, the bigger the particles, the atoms, the molecules, and then molecules cluster to form elements, which is basically in its rudimentary form dust particles. These move through the ether and form currents, and that is what causes time, which explains why time travels at different places or at different speeds in different places. And it also explains why, if we could travel at the same speed as light, time would actually stand still, because we are traveling with the current at the speed that the current is traveling at. So with light, we're gauging ourselves with what we can see. So we would be, if we could travel at the speed of light, time stands still. We know this. It's been proven, or mathematically proven anyway. But that is why. And that is why, if we could travel at the speed of light, time would stand still, because we are actually moving at the same speed as the currents traveling through the universe. Another little tidbit I'm throwing in there. Now, how did this all come together? So now we've got dust everywhere created. Now, gravity, despite what Einstein said, in fact, there's a big flaw in Einstein's theory about general relativity, and that is, he needs a large body to produce gravity, like a star or an Earth or a planet. A large body, being dense, he says, warps this supposed space-time. And that's what causes gravity, according to Einstein's theory. However, when you look at, well, how did large bodies form? Then they say, well, gravity formed its magic. So the chicken and egg scenario with that theory is, if you need gravity to pull together matter to create a planet, how can the planet create gravity? It's a chicken and egg scenario that nobody wants to go there. If you're doing a physics degree, you put your hand up, excuse me, so if this chicken and egg scenario, and see what they say. No, don't ask that. So yeah, this explains the chicken and egg scenario. What I'm saying is the pressure in the ether pushing down on large bodies of now gases compresses them into planets, or even smaller items, but that's what causes gravity. It's caused by pressure. So gravity, in other words, does not attract, or it doesn't pull. Gravity is the energy that's around all over the universe, full of it, under pressure, putting a pressure down from above. So it's rather than a pulling, it's a pushing energy. And that is what pushes everything together and holds everything together. So these dust particles are held together by gravity. Atoms are held together by gravity. Particles are held together by gravity. They start out by the law of attraction, but they're held together by this gravity, this pressure that exists in the ether, or as I like to call it, the akasha. Akasha. That's the Sanskrit word for it. So that is how planets develop. So eventually, these particles look like this. And that's a photograph of Jupiter, which is in our solar system. But this would have been the first gas giant planet. Would have existed, and I don't know how long ago, right at the dawn of time, this came about. Now, as I have said, everything, if it can't find purpose, it can't continue to grow, it hasn't got purpose, then it stalls. And if it stalls for too long, it will start to decay. So this first planet, similar to Jupiter in our system, became so big, so dense, that it did something maybe it didn't even expect. It exploded and turned into the first star. And our scientists today have often referred to as Jupiter as being an unexploded star. They know this. But it's just not dense enough. And it's not dense enough yet. Not dense enough yet. One day, it will fulfill its purpose. Jupiter will fulfill its purpose, and it will ignite, move away from our star system, and take its moons with it. That will become its planets, and it will become another solar system. And this is how everything expands and grows. So we've got now the first star. And that star is still burning today. Stars do not just burn up their contents and then burn out. The purpose of a star is to convert energy. They actually draw in energy from the ether, convert it rapidly. So instead of having to go through the very, very slow build-up, they convert energy rapidly now. And this is when the first gas giant exploded into the first star. This was a giant leap in the evolution of our universe. So these stars, this first star, exploded. That caused a nebula. So it's actually the other way around. Scientists today say that stars are actually born in nebulas. It's actually the other way around. A star exploding and becoming a star actually causes a nebula. And these gases that are formed in the nebula are then compressed by gravity and are added to the first star's sphere, and they became its planets, consisting of both other gas giants that would develop, that would grow themselves and become gas giants that will one day become stars, and also the leftovers, which became rocky planets. So there you have it. That's the beginning of our universe. In the next episode, I'm going to continue this and the expansion of the universe. So I've got you now to the first star and the first planet, the first solar system. I'm going to continue this on now in developing how the universe expanded and continued to grow into something more that resembles what we know today. Okay, so I hope you like what I'm saying. It's completely new, I know, not understood very well at all. I hope I've tried to explain it, and I hope I've put something forward that makes sense. And so if you like me, if you like it, I'm Wolfster, by the way. I don't know if I introduced myself at the start. My name's Wolfster, and if you like it, then please, you know what to do to help me. Every YouTuber says the same thing. Like it, please follow me, share it too. That will be a great thing to do. And I'll see you again in episode 15, and I will show you how the universe continued to expand to something like what we know today. Okay, bye for now.